What is job costing and process costing? Many contractors are actually using the wrong process, and honestly, it just makes it meaningless. The difference between job costing and process costing is the difference between knowing and guessing. By the end of this video, you're going to know what both job and process costing are and why for a construction business, you really need to go to one over the other. Back in the day, when my kids were in school, at the end of every quarter, if they did a good job, they would get gift certificates to local restaurants. And one of the restaurants, I loosely call a restaurant, was actually a bulk food trough, basically a buffet. And so when you walked into the buffet and it had sprawling dishes and it had all of the fudge that was just gleaming over these probably pretty disgusting and not very well sanitized implements that were coming out, there was a moment that you thought, wow, this is so much fun. And then once you started eating, you thought, this is not very delicious. And I'm starting to feel bad about it at this point. And when you go to a place like that, that is the equivalent to process costing. But when you go to a high-end foodie place, a place where you want to go on a date night, a special occasion, you sit down and you just tell the chef, hey, surprise us. And it lights them up. They get so excited and they start to bring out these dishes one by one and they start to track these things and how your experience was. That's job costing versus process costing. Job costing drills down into the details, into the understanding of the special little elements of every job, whereas process costing just looks at the bulk material and manufacturing. So think of process costing for more manufacturing processes, just widgets. And I want you to think about job costing as helping us to understand the profitability of job 1 and job 2 and job 3. And through that, it gives us outputs, not only to understand information about those jobs going forward, but also to understand the profitability of our business overall. And when things don't feel that profitable or look that profitable, we can start to diagnose job by job. But here's what happens when you don't have this. If you don't have proper job costing and things don't look good on the back end, you've got no information that you can go back and research to understand why. And you start to guess, and you start to put out fires that you may not need to put out. In fact, you might have needed some of those fires to stoke some other things to get your business going, but because we didn't do proper job costing, we fully don't understand why the things that are happening. Now, the mistake that contractors can make is you can start to treat your business like a factory, and you just start doing generalizations. Generally, every year we spend about this much on a particular thing. Now, your profit and loss statement will tell you overall those generalities, but if you don't understand the component parts that make up those generalities, then your profit and loss statement is going to be a macro look at your year, but fundamentally it's not going to tell you much of anything. Remember this, money flows in 3 directions. The PPF, what is that? Past, present, and future. So in the past are things like profit and loss statements, balance sheets, all of those sorts of printable materials out of your accounting software. The present are things like real-time cash accounts. One of the things that we do is we have all of our contractors subdivide their cash accounts into a minimum of 6 accounts. Things like profit, operating expense, tax, capital expense, cost of goods. Well, Scott, we can just do that on a spreadsheet. Yes, 2 things. Number 1, you won't. And number 2, money screws with your head. It does funny things to our heads. And so what we want to do, instead of allowing money to start manipulating with our minds and our brains, we want to take that money and we want to start to subdivide it. We want to impose our oversight onto that money so that we can make that money work for the things that we need it to work for, rather than the money doing to us what it has done to us, which for many contractors means we're using tomorrow's deposits to pay for yesterday's bills. So we want to subdivide all this stuff and begin to know this stuff, but how do we have clarity around the actual cash financials of our business? Is we've got to go down to the granular part and job cost, job by job by job, rather than just looking at the rear-facing profit and loss statement of the balance sheet to tell us the health of the business. The overall health of the business could be generalized on this side of it, but it is fully understood once you have your cash and you have proper job costing in place. So how do we do the job costing? Super simple. You ready? 3 forms. Number 1 is the contract value. It all starts with the estimate. Once you truly have a good estimate, you have your contract value. That's the first number that we want to put up here. So let's just say it's $1 million. So our contract value is $1 million on this particular job. The second number we want to understand is what is our gross profit that we have left over to run the business. We're still not done with that. But in order to get to that gross profit, the bills that rack up as that job moves on are what we call the cost of goods. Now those cost of goods are made up of 4 component parts. And I'm going to write this in green and you'll see why. Because it's the acronym Slime. Now that's not an I, that's a separation point, but we've got two sides of the slime. The people cost and the non-people cost of that slime. So the people costs are going to be subcontractors and labor. Now you might be thinking, what's the difference? Well, the labor is anybody that you might have self-performing working for you. They're a W-2 employee, but you're going to categorize them as a cost of good and not an overhead expense. And so we call that above the line categorization. The second, or the non-people side of this, are going to be the materials and the equipment. Now, be careful. The material is pretty straightforward, but the equipment, you might own that equipment. Well, if you do, don't just take that equipment for granted. You thought it'd be a good idea to buy the equipment because it would be, quote, profitable. We could make money on our equipment. But if that equipment is actually not being cost coded here, then you're not making money on it because you're not paying yourself back. So determine if it's equipment that you have or if it's equipment that maybe a rental agency or somebody like that has. And you got to put a cost code on it per hour, per mobilization, per day, per half day, whatever it might be. So when you understand your slime day by day, now you understand your cost of goods, and the cost of goods begin to mount up so that at the closeout of the job, we can take our contract value, originally estimated and taken in for the value, especially if you're a fixed price contractor, and we could subtract our cost of goods, and what's left over is our gross profit or gross margin. Now, we still got money coming out of that. We got our overhead. So overhead comes out of here, and so, sorry, there's 3 lines in that H, but once the overhead's done, that can drop down and actually give us our net income. And that's what we've got left over to be able to do, and we can move forward and either reinvest in the business or draw out for ourselves or whatever you want to do with that. That's truly yours at the end. But as a contractor, I want you to focus less on just generalizations of costing and job 1, job 2, job 3. What's the contract value? What's the cost of goods based on the slime? And what's the gross percentage that's left over, that gross profit that you use to run the business? And then you can net out at the bottom. Once you understand that job by job, then you can begin to understand the entire system. And that's where I want you to go click on the link in the description below and go to a long form training video that I built just for you that'll teach you how to build a system for your construction business. And when you walk through that, you're going to see where job costing fits within what we call the profit vertical of your business. And every construction business needs a profit vertical. You need a purpose, people, process, and profit vertical. And in that video in the description link below, I'll teach you how to build all of those so that you have accurate job costing. And so you'll understand the difference between job costing and process costing and begin to lean into that. Why? So you can stop swimming in chaos and you can be liberated from that chaos to make time for the things that matter most.